Imagine workers at a nuclear facility watching helplessly as their centrifuges spin out of control, sabotaged by an invisible enemy they can't see or stop. In 2010, Stuxnet became the world's first cyber weapon, crippling Iran's nuclear program with surgical precision through just a few lines of code. Intelligence suggests the US and Israel built it, but the digital trail vanishes in shadows. That's cyber warfare. Attacks strike faster than a bullet, yet tracing them becomes a global game of clue without answers. This is the new battlefield where viruses replace missiles, and attribution takes years, if it comes at all. The birth of digital weapons. Stuxnet. The Stuxnet worm marked a turning point in modern warfare. Unlike typical malware that steals data or causes digital disruption, this cyber weapon had one clear purpose: physical destruction. It specifically targeted industrial control systems at Iran's Natanz uranium enrichment facility, proving that code could inflict real-world damage comparable to kinetic weapons. Cyber-physical attacks represent a new frontier in conflict. These operations bridge the digital and physical worlds by targeting systems that control machinery, infrastructure, and industrial processes. Before Stuxnet, most security experts considered air-gapped systems, networks physically isolated from the internet, to be relatively safe from cyber threats. Stuxnet shattered that assumption completely. The malware's method of infiltration revealed a critical vulnerability in supposedly secure systems. It spread initially through infected USB flash drives. We'll examine this delivery method in detail later. Once inside Natanz's isolated network, Stuxnet exploited multiple zero-day vulnerabilities, like secret backdoors left unlocked in Windows systems. The worm used 4 different zero-day exploits, including one that allowed remote code execution simply by viewing a malicious Windows shortcut file. Stuxnet's sophisticated design included multiple components working in sequence. First, it established persistence on infected systems while remaining undetected. Then it specifically hunted for Windows computers running Siemens Step 7 software, the brains controlling the facility's centrifuges. The malware could even update itself locally while still avoiding internet connectivity, like a spy receiving coded messages without breaking cover. Iranian technicians first noticed something was wrong when centrifuges began failing at unprecedented rates. The uranium enrichment cascades, which require precise synchronization of hundreds of spinning machines, kept experiencing unexplained failures. Maintenance logs showed normal operations, but in reality, Stuxnet was secretly manipulating their functions, like a puppeteer making marionettes dance while hiding the strings. The worm executed its attack by taking control of the PLCs and issuing conflicting commands. It varied rotational speeds in patterns that maximized mechanical stress, alternately revving centrifuges beyond safe limits, then slamming on the brakes. This caused bearings to fail and rotors to tear themselves apart while displaying normal readings to operators. Some centrifuges reportedly spun at speeds several times higher than their design limits for sustained periods, the equivalent of redlining a car engine until it explodes. Analysis of Stuxnet's code revealed its highly targeted nature. The malware contained exact specifications of the IR-1 centrifuges used at Natanz, including their ideal operating speeds. It only activated when it identified these exact configurations, remaining dormant on other systems, like a sniper's bullet programmed to only detonate inside one specific target. Forensic investigations later showed Stuxnet had spread far beyond its intended target. By mid-2010, security firms detected infections in over 100,000 systems across 155 countries, enough devices to fill a large sports stadium. Most were collateral damage, though the majority of infections occurred in Iran, suggesting the delivery was highly focused but imperfectly contained. Estimates suggest Stuxnet destroyed around 1,000 centrifuges at Natanz, approximately 1/5 of Iran's installed capacity. This set back the Iranian nuclear program by 1 to 2 years, according to most assessments. The attack demonstrated that carefully engineered malware could achieve strategic objectives traditionally requiring military strikes. The complexity of Stuxnet pointed to significant resources behind its development. Security analysts identified components that would require testing on actual centrifuge systems, something only a handful of nations could accomplish. Later reports suggested the US and Israel jointly developed the weapon under a covert program, though neither country has officially confirmed this. Stuxnet revolutionized cyber warfare through its strategic application. Unlike previous cyber operations focused on espionage, this attack achieved permanent physical destruction while maintaining plausible deniability. It operated for months without detection, leaving no clear fingerprints, a ghost in the machine that vanished after completing its mission. The attack blurred traditional boundaries between digital and kinetic warfare. While no explosions occurred, the effects were just as real as physical sabotage. Stuxnet proved that critical infrastructure everywhere potentially faced similar threats, from power grids to water treatment plants, all vulnerable to invisible attackers. Stuxnet's legacy extends beyond its immediate impact. It established a blueprint for future cyber weapons and revealed fundamental weaknesses in industrial control security. Many systems worldwide still use vulnerable software designed when cyber threats weren't a primary concern. The worm also demonstrated that human behavior, like using USB drives across secure systems, could undermine even robust technical defenses. Several elements made Stuxnet particularly dangerous as a precedent. Its ability to spread beyond its target showed how cyber weapons could cause unintended collateral damage. The multiple zero-day exploits it contained indicated attackers could circumvent even well-patched systems. Most significantly, it proved that infrastructure relying on commercial software could be manipulated through its underlying code. The attack raised legal and ethical questions about cyber operations. Traditional laws of armed conflict don't clearly address situations where one country secretly sabotages another's infrastructure without attribution. Stuxnet operated in a gray zone where conventional rules didn't neatly apply, setting a worrisome precedent. Security researchers took months to fully analyze Stuxnet after its discovery. What they found was malware of unprecedented sophistication, roughly 50 times larger than typical worms. The code contained detailed knowledge of industrial processes and multiple layers of obfuscation, a digital Swiss watch compared to the simple malware pocket watches of its era. The political implications were equally significant. By avoiding a conventional military strike, the operation demonstrated how cyber tools could achieve strategic goals without triggering immediate conflict. However, it also lowered the threshold for infrastructure attacks and demonstrated methods other nations might replicate. Modern industrial systems still face similar vulnerabilities today. Many facilities use aging control systems with inadequate security, sitting ducks for sophisticated attackers. The specific vulnerabilities Stuxnet exploited have been patched, but new flaws continue to emerge in critical infrastructure worldwide. Stuxnet was just the beginning of cyber warfare's evolution. Its success showed how digital weapons could achieve strategic effects formerly only possible through physical force. But where Stuxnet was precise and targeted, the next major cyber weapon would prove far more indiscriminate, ushering in an era where collateral damage could span the globe. The USB that shook the world. The Natanz uranium enrichment facility was designed with security in mind. Its most sensitive systems were air-gapped, completely isolated from the internet, creating a physical barrier against cyber threats. This isolation was supposed to make it impregnable to remote attacks. Yet in 2009, someone found a way through this digital moat using one of the most mundane tools imaginable, a USB flash drive. Like a modern Trojan horse, These ordinary devices became the perfect vehicle for infiltration. At Natanz, technicians routinely used USB drives to transfer data between isolated systems and external computers, a necessary workflow that created an invisible bridge across the air gap. One employee's simple act of plugging in an infected drive, whether intentional or accidental, likely introduced Stuxnet into the facility. The malware's creators understood human behavior would be the easiest path past physical defenses. Stuxnet exploited a critical Windows vulnerability, CVE 2010-2568, that executed malicious code automatically when users viewed USB contents in Windows Explorer. No clicks required. Just inserting the drive triggered infection. Combined with advanced rootkit techniques, this allowed Stuxnet to embed itself deep within system files while spreading silently via USB or network shares. Security researchers later found evidence the worm had been mapping Natanz networks for nearly a year before activating. It specifically targeted industrial control systems running Siemens Step 7 software, the interface used to program centrifuge managing PLCs. The malware waited patiently until confirming it had reached the right systems before deploying its payload. The Siemens software vulnerability proved devastating. Stuxnet could inject malicious code directly into PLCs, altering centrifuge operations while showing normal readings to operators. It precisely targeted frequency converter drives, manipulating speeds to cause physical damage while feeding false data to monitoring systems. One technician reportedly described the centrifuges dancing themselves to death, shaking violently before tearing apart at high speeds. Maintenance teams were baffled as machines failed despite passing all diagnostics. The malware's ability to hide its activity was particularly insidious. When increasing centrifuge speeds beyond safe limits, it displayed normal readings on control panels. During maintenance checks, it would temporarily revert to normal operations to avoid detection. The worm's spread beyond Natanz revealed its uncontrollable nature. Designed for a specific target, Stuxnet nevertheless infected over 100,000 computers globally due to aggressive propagation methods. While most infections occurred in Iran, systems in India, Indonesia and elsewhere were compromised, demonstrating how cyber weapons can't always be contained. Forensic analysis showed Stuxnet used stolen digital certificates from Realtek and J-Micron to appear legitimate, bypassing security checks. This sophistication suggested nation-state resources. The physical effects became undeniable in late 2009 as centrifuges failed at unprecedented rates, though the cyber cause remained hidden until mid-2010. The attack highlighted fundamental weaknesses in industrial systems worldwide. Many critical facilities relied on similar setups, older Windows systems running specialized software with poor security. Air gapping alone couldn't protect against attackers exploiting human behavior and system vulnerabilities. Preparations reportedly included building a replica of Natanz in Tennessee to test centrifuge sabotage methods. This test environment allowed fine-tuning Stuxnet's destructive algorithms, evidence of significant investment. The malware could even update itself across air-gapped networks, with payload modules activating only when specific conditions were met. Security experts were alarmed by Stuxnet's use of 4 zero-day exploits, previously unknown vulnerabilities that give no time for patches. Targeting fundamental Windows components, these were valuable assets most attackers would ration carefully. Stuxnet's legacy proved far-reaching. It demonstrated that infrastructure worldwide shared similar vulnerabilities, from power plants to water systems using comparable equipment. The attack showed adversaries could infiltrate and damage facilities remotely without physical access. The anonymous nature of such attacks creates accountability challenges. While evidence points to US and Israeli involvement, definitive attribution remains elusive. This plausible deniability makes cyber weapons attractive to nation-states but complicates international response. Existing treaties didn't clearly address cyber attacks causing physical damage, leaving Stuxnet in a legal grey zone between sabotage and armed conflict. The operation's success depended on precise knowledge of IR-1 centrifuges, suggesting state-level intelligence gathering. Widely considered a turning point in cyber warfare, Stuxnet proved digital attacks could achieve strategic military objectives traditionally requiring physical force. A small skilled team could damage heavily defended facilities with minimal risk, an asymmetric advantage that sparked global cyber arms development. Industrial systems still struggle with similar vulnerabilities today, as upgrading outdated control systems often requires costly shutdowns. While patched Siemens flaws can't be exploited by Stuxnet anymore, new industrial system vulnerabilities constantly emerge. The psychological impact was profound. Supposedly secure systems could be penetrated and manipulated, forcing governments and corporations to recognize cyber warfare as tangible rather than theoretical. By proving cyber weapons could cause physical destruction, Stuxnet lowered the threshold for future attacks. It also highlighted supply chain risks, spreading partly through infected contractor computers that connected to multiple facilities, a tactic now common in cyber espionage. 10 years later, Stuxnet remains one of history's most studied malware, with its techniques becoming standard among advanced threats. While surgical in targeting, Stuxnet's successor NotPetya would show how cyber weapons could spiral out of control, causing global havoc where Stuxnet caused contained damage. The era of precision cyber warfare had begun, but its consequences would prove unpredictable. NotPetya. Cyber war goes global. On June 27, 2017, the world witnessed the most devastating cyber attack in history unfold in real time. NotPetya began as a targeted strike against Ukraine, but within hours became a global digital tsunami, crippling hospitals, freezing supermarket checkouts, and even disabling radiation monitoring at Chernobyl. This wasn't just malware. It was a weapon that would ultimately cause $10 billion in damages, equivalent to wiping out the entire annual GDP of a small nation. The attack spread like wildfire through a poisoned update for MEDOC, accounting software used by 80% of Ukrainian businesses. Unlike typical ransomware, NotPetya's $300 Bitcoin demand was a decoy. Its real purpose was total destruction. Security experts recognized it as a militarized version of Petya ransomware, supercharged with propagation tools that exploited fundamental weaknesses in global networks. NotPetya moved with terrifying efficiency using three primary methods: the Eternal Blue exploit, the same vulnerability WannaCry had used months earlier, stolen network credentials, and lateral movement across connected systems. Imagine a burglar who picks locks, forges keys, and walks through walls simultaneously. That was NotPetya's approach to infiltration. Companies with Ukrainian operations became unwitting carriers, spreading the malware internationally through corporate networks before they even realized they were infected. Maersk's nightmare began when an employee in Ukraine opened an infected file. Within minutes, the shipping giant's entire global network was compromised, from New Jersey to Mumbai. Port operations ground to a halt as cargo tracking systems failed. At Los Angeles, longshoremen tracked shipments with pen and paper, while 17 container ships floated idle offshore. The company's eventual recovery required reinstalling 4,000 servers and 45,000 PCs, a digital reconstruction costing up to $300 million. Maersk's crisis exemplified the attack's cruel irony. The worst damage occurred far from NotPetya's intended Ukrainian targets. 76 port terminals suspended operations, creating supply chain delays lasting months. Pharmaceutical giant Merck lost $870 million when vaccine production lines stopped. FedEx's European subsidiary TNT Express took $400 million in losses. These companies became collateral damage in a cyber conflict they had no part in, their global networks serving as highways for digital destruction. The attack's financial impacts were staggering, but the legal aftermath proved equally disruptive. when food conglomerate Mondelez filed a $100 million insurance claim for 1,700 infected servers and 24,000 bricked laptops. Zurich Insurance denied coverage, citing an act of war exclusion. This unprecedented denial, based on Western governments attributing NotPetya to Russian military hackers, left businesses uncertain whether standard policies covered state-sponsored cyber attacks. The resulting legal battle dragged on for years, becoming a cautionary tale about the insurance industry's unpreparedness for digital warfare. Evidence pointing to Russia's GRU military intelligence unit was unusually specific. Security firms traced the malware to hacking group Sandworm, GRU Unit 74455, noting the attackers had tested versions against Ukrainian targets since 2016. Digital fingerprints were everywhere. Malware compiled during Moscow work hours, Ukrainian language settings deliberately excluded, and reused infrastructure from prior GRU attacks on Ukraine's power grid. In February 2018, the White House and allies issued a rare joint statement explicitly blaming Russia, with the UK's Cybersecurity agency declaring its certainty about GRU involvement. NotPetya's design revealed its true nature as a weapon rather than crimeware. It didn't just encrypt files, it destroyed master boot records, making recovery impossible even with ransom payment. The malware operated with military precision, prioritizing speed and destruction over persistence. Its collateral damage exposed fundamental weaknesses in global business technology: outdated Windows systems, flat networks without segmentation, and over-reliance on centralized infrastructure. Nation-state actors had found the corporate world's digital Achilles heel. Critical infrastructure operators woke up to their vulnerability. Industrial control systems in power plants and factories often resembled the IT environments NotPetya ravaged. Energy companies realized similar malware could jump from office networks to operational technology, potentially causing blackouts or physical damage. While some rushed to segment industrial systems, many facilities still lag behind, a dangerous gap given rising cyber tensions. The attack forced industries to confront uncomfortable truths. Insurers began rewriting policies to exclude state-sponsored attacks, while companies demanded clearer coverage terms. Governments debated creating cyber attack pools similar to terrorism insurance funds. Businesses realized operating in conflict zones, even digitally, exposed global operations to risk, prompting some to isolate regional IT infrastructures. NotPetya proved there were no true bystanders in modern cyber conflict, only varying degrees of vulnerability. In Ukraine, the attack coincided with Constitution Day, a likely symbolic choice in Russia's ongoing hybrid war. While Ukrainian banks and tax systems suffered catastrophic damage, the global fallout eclipsed these intended effects. Response efforts revealed stark disparities in preparedness. Companies like Maersk with comprehensive backups restored operations in weeks, albeit at enormous cost, while others took months to recover. The event rewrote business continuity planning to account for deliberate cyber destruction alongside natural disasters. Technical analysis showed NotPetya's potency came from blending tools, Petya's destructive core, NSA-leaked Eternal Blue exploits, and Russian espionage techniques. With an infection rate of 10 new victims per compromised machine, it surpassed even the most virulent previous cyber threats. The human toll extended beyond finances. Maersk employees typed manifests on vintage typewriters, engineers flew with servers strapped into airplane seats, and supply chain disruptions caused global shortages lasting years. 5 years later, NotPetya remains the benchmark for destructive cyber operations, not merely for its technical execution, but for revealing how digital weapons ignore borders with catastrophic consequences. Where Stuxnet demonstrated precision strikes against physical infrastructure, NotPetya showed cyber warfare could create economic chaos on a global scale. Together they represent the spectrum of modern digital conflict, one surgically targeted, the other indiscriminately destructive. But understanding who actually pulls the strings, the attribution problem. Proving who launched a cyber attack is like searching for a needle in a digital haystack. The very nature of digital warfare makes tracking fingerprints incredibly difficult. Take Stuxnet and NotPetya as prime examples. These attacks reshaped our understanding of cyber attribution, showing how adversaries exploit the digital landscape's inherent obscurity to evade responsibility. Cyber attribution begins with technical analysis, but quickly becomes murky. Investigators examine malware code for unique signatures, trace command servers, and analyze timestamps. However, skilled attackers anticipate these methods. They route traffic through hacked servers in neutral countries, use encryption to hide communications, and plant false clues, creating a hall of mirrors where every lead could be authentic or deliberately placed to deceive.